Hey, Back Home Media listeners, thank you for choosing In the Free Zone with Norm. If you want to know more about Norm or get in contact with him, go to backhomemedia.com. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/fatkidaz.
Back Home Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In the Free Zone. Looks like Derek is having a problem at the moment, but with me, as always, is Derek. Derek, how you doing?
I sneezed.
Ah, gotcha.
I'm one of those multiple sneezers sometimes.
Guys, it's August. Today is August 4th. Is that correct? Yeah. It's getting to be football season. Will be cranking up soon. It's getting to be back to school time. And as a matter of fact, I found out today that I will start, I'll have a new teacher in service over at Guyman Friday. Luckily not tomorrow. I thought I was going to find out I was supposed to be there tomorrow, but I'm supposed to be there Friday. And then next week we have professional development most of the week. And then classes start on Friday of next weekend. Other schools around will be starting up soon too. Derek, I know your kids already started to school, didn't they, this last week?
Yeah, Monday they went. So
yeah,
pretty wild stuff, man. They start really early out here in Arizona.
Yeah, that is pretty early. I mean, that's yeah. But now, what time of year do they get out there? I mean, are you
maybe? I think it's pretty close to the same time. Like summer is not that long out here.
Yeah,
like it's pretty short.
Yeah.
So that's it's I think it's maybe a few days earlier than people in Kansas get out, but from what I remember, I think it's pretty close.
Yeah. We're, schools out here vary so much. In some states, your schools are relatively uniform. Most of the schools in the state have schedules that are pretty similar. Some states even have a state schedule, not all by any means, but in Kansas, the schools are, it varies quite a bit. You have out here, most of your schools are going to start in mid-August. They're going to be out by mid-May, definitely be out before Memorial Day weekend. But I know you get back east and in Wichita and in Wichita also, and some of those places they go to, they're still in school after Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, it varies a little bit, and there are some of those that are still in school into the first week of June. So, but obviously in your states set how long you have to be in school, how many days or how many hours. In Kansas, it's done by hours. It's like 1,080 hours or something like that. Other states set it by days. You're required to be in school X number of days. So every state's a little different in how they do things. But
you have shaved off the summer beard.
I have, yeah. I got a haircut and a shave both here in the last few days.
There we go.
Yeah.
Ready for the school year.
Going clean cut for the start of the school year. Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, I don't look like I don't look like a back alley Grizzly Adams anymore.
Are you pretty stoked about going over to Guyman, or do you think there's going to be like a learning curve with being in a new state? Or
I'm sure there'll be a learning curve. There'll also be going back to teaching English after 10 years of teaching special ed will be an adjustment, I'm sure. There's a tremendous amount of paperwork involved with being a special ed teacher. There's also a tremendous amount of paperwork involved with being an English teacher. I'm glad I'm not both anymore, because at Liberal, most of the time I was both and had that paperwork load of both. So I am kind of looking forward to just being an English teacher again. I think that'll be nice. I still don't, and this is my own fault. I could have been down there getting in my classroom and doing that kind of stuff. I still don't even know 100% for sure what I'm teaching. So I'll find all that out tomorrow or Friday and then start making preparations,
Right. For sure, man. I mean, you got to be stoked, man. You're gonna have some. Like, we got to do something with Friday nights with football season.
We'll see. We might be able to do that. Might be able to do something on Friday nights. My plan has been to just go watch some games,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, have you go and do something that, we could be interactive with our listeners and stuff, and just have you, like, maybe even if you just go take some videos of some games and post them to the page,
Yeah, that might be what we do. We'll come up with something though. Yeah. I agree. I'm kind of looking forward to that, kind of doing something on Friday nights.
Yeah.
Speaking of football, because football is what's driving this, the Big 12 continues to be a major story in college sports, or not just the Big 12, but everything surrounding the departure of Oklahoma and Texas from the Big 12. It is now a more or less a done deal. The only thing that still has to be worked out is when it happens, not if it happens. Oklahoma and Texas have made application to the SEC. The SEC's voted to extend an invitation to them. So like I said, it's now a matter of if it happens, not, or when it happens, not if it happens. However, there has been, politicians always got to get involved in stuff. The Texas state legislature, they had some hearings on whether or not, and there was talk of them trying to shut down Texas's move to the SEC. To me, the most interesting exchange in that came out of that was a senator who I believe was an alumni of TCU was questioning the athletic director at Texas. And one of the questions that she asked is what Texas's athletic budget was. And he said it was over 200 million. He believed somewhere in the neighborhood of 220 to 225 million a year. Now, of course, the next question she asked is where that ranks nationwide. And of course, his answer was he believes it's number one. In other words, nobody else spends more money on their athletic programs than the University of Texas. That's why the University of Texas is attractive to the SEC. Okay. It's not their recent record. As a matter of fact, she said, you spend $225 million a year. Now I'm paraphrasing here. These weren't her exact words. You spend $225 million a year and your football program still sucks. And of course, Texas's AD got a little offended by that and said, we've not had the success we would like of late, but we've been a successful program. And then she pointed out that they were 3-10 against TCU in recent years. So yeah, there are still plenty of people taking shots. I noticed that Roger Marshall, the congressman from Kansas, requested that the DOJ look into possible underhanded dealings by ESPN. A lot of people believe that ESPN more or less conspired with the SEC to lure Texas and Oklahoma away, and that ESPN, for two reasons. Number one, ESPN wants to strengthen the SEC because starting in 2022, I believe it is, ESPN has exclusive rights to the SEC. And also right now, ESPN has a contract with the Big 12, and it's believed that, or has been accused that that ESPN is trying to break up the Big 12 so they don't have to honor that contract. Now, do I think there's any truth to that? Hey, it wouldn't surprise me if there was some collusion with them as far as trying to get Texas and Oklahoma to move to the SEC and strengthen their brand there. That wouldn't surprise me a bit. As a matter of fact, some former ESPN executives have said that would be in keeping with what they've done in the past. However, do I think that ESPN's trying to break up the Big 12? Well, I'm a little less likely to believe that. So I don't think that that's necessarily what's going on, but those accusations have certainly been made. And I'll be honest with you guys, in a lot of people's mind, there's still a question whether the Big 12 will hang on or not. I really do not believe, and just, my own personal opinion, I really do not believe the Big 12 will hang on. And if it does, it's going to be reduced basically to the same status as your group of 5 conferences. It'll be reduced to more or less the same status as like the AAC and the Mountain West. And so, it'll be a sad thing. My guess is because that reduced status will come along, you're going to see then as many of the Big 12 teams as possible jump ship. If they can find another home in the Power 5, they probably will. And unfortunately, somebody that's in the Big 12 now is probably going to be left out as far as getting into a Power 5 conference. And the sad part is that may end up being K-State, to be honest with you. I hope that it's not, but I'm really starting to wonder. I'm starting to worry a little that K-State's going to get locked out of the Power 5 and that K-State may end up in a conference like the Mountain West or the AAC. But that will all work itself out in the coming years. Remember that the Big 12 is locked into contracts through 2024. Okay, so
all this stuff would happen after 24?
Exactly. This is stuff that, there was probably going to be something going on when this stuff came up for negotiation again anyway. Oklahoma and Texas kind of jump-started that process, but it was probably gonna happen at one point or another anyway.
I was going to bring up tonight, and I'm surprised we didn't bring it up last week, but the whole Simone Biles thing that's going on.
Oh yeah.
If anybody that's watching or listening don't know, I guess she basically took a week off, took a break at the Olympics, which a lot of people think is very disrespectful. But it came out today that her aunt had died.
Yeah, that's what I was
going to say. Like, hey, you got a thing today, but by the way, your aunt's dead and you can't go anywhere. You're stuck here at the Olympics. So, what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, as a coach, you would want to hope to coach them through using that pain to do something great. But at the end of the time, you can almost end up being a little predatory, where you're like caring more about the win than somebody's mental health. Like, what line do you dance when you have an athlete that goes through something terrible and they have something to do?
Well, and see, that is always the problem, right? I mean, like I've always said, and I think we've even talked about this on here. So this is just kind of my personal philosophy. It has nothing to do with sports or this particular situation, but I have this belief that most people are basically decent people. At the same time, I also hold the belief that most people are going to act in their own selfish interests most of the time. Okay? Coaches are no different. Coaches are going to act in their own self-interest most of the time. And of course, the self-interest of the coach is for the performer to perform, Mm-hmm. And you see it, like a lot of people talked about the situation with Kerry Strug. What year was that? I don't even remember now. 90s, it was back in the 90s. Yeah, it was in the 90s, maybe 92 even. Okay. And she was obviously injured, but, her coach urged her, told her, you can do this, you can do this, had her come out and do another vault, and she did. And, and the team ended up winning the gold medal. And everybody points to her as this paragon of toughness and everything. And she was. I'm not trying to take anything away from her. But at the same time, as a coach, when you are encouraging an athlete to perform when they're injured, that worked out okay. But if it doesn't, if she had come down and horribly injured herself, perhaps permanently, and by the way, she may well have, because she stopped competing right after those Olympics, right? We don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head how badly she was really hurt by that. I do know that she stopped competing in the Olympics after that, even though she was pretty young. So, when you risk an athlete being further injured or more seriously injured for your own selfish interests, that's not a good thing, And so as a coach, I try to tend to think of the athlete's health, long-term health, because I know that often the athlete won't think of that themselves. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah.
and obviously every athlete's different. Some of them will, but a lot of athletes, they'll be like, oh, I can do it. I'm fine. And as a coach, sometimes you've got to be the one to tell them, no, you're not fine. You know, it's time to put a fork in it here. You're done, you know? So when it comes to the specific Simone Biles situation, you know, obviously she had multiple things going on, you know, but again, as an athlete and an adult athlete, not a high school kid, you know, she made the decision of what was best for her. And to me, as a coach, you've got to kind of respect that, you know. Now,
And
I don't
with
know.
the girl in the 90s, it's easy to say like, oh, that worked out. But at the end of the day, we don't even know how much of it was her choice, whether or not she got back out there. And the doctor that they handed her to, you know, seconds after she, you know, got the slow-mo moment of the decade where everybody got to see this like huge sports moment, they handed her to a doctor that was molesting her. You know, so you got to like
molested many people.
Yeah, but I mean, they were handing her to her predator, and he's the medical doctor who I'm assuming they have a conversation with before they hobble her back out there to do it again. I mean, how is she going to tell somebody who's abusing her, like, no, I'm not going to do that? You know, it's like you have to really ask yourself, did she really even want to go? And then, it worked out and it was awesome. But you're right, like. Was that for her or was that for our own selfish, like, and then not even just for coaches, I'm talking everybody on TV watching, like, just do it, you know, for the sports moment. But and then as a person, if I was a coach, I can honestly see myself being like, look, your aunt died, this is terrible, but which is all the same, what I'm going to say is true, but it's almost like you want to also be like, do you think they would be happy with you quitting right now? Like, do you think your aunt would be okay with you quitting because of what happened? Or do you think that she would get mad about that? And you do have the option to use that pain to achieve greatness, but it's such a fine line to dance on.
Yeah. Yes, it is. You know, and that's one of those things. I just, you know, I don't know, obviously don't know Simone Biles personally. And I have no idea what was going through her mind, but I do know that she's an adult and that she's earned the right to make that decision for herself, you know. Mm-hmm. At the same time, as fans, is it easy to say, oh, she should have been tougher? She should have. Well, of course it is, you know, and that's the nature of sports. The nature of especially spectators is they all have their own opinion of what should have happened, right? But the man in the arena is the one, or in this case, the young lady in the arena is the one that has to make that decision, you know? I mean, and so as a coach and as an athlete, you know, I respect her making the decision that was right for her in that situation. Now, is it the decision I would have made? Maybe not. And it's certainly not the decision that a lot of other athletes would have made. Every athlete is different. But the point is, she's an adult. She's accomplished a ton. She's earned the right to make her own decision, you know, and you can debate whether or not you think it was the right decision all you want. That's the nature of sports. We always debate whether or not we think a decision was right, you know.
Do you think it's fair to put her in a liability basket if we're talking about 4 years from now?
I don't know. First of all, I'm just guessing. The career of most gymnasts is relatively short. She's already had a long career for a gymnast. And so my guess is it's a moot point because she's probably not going to be around for the next Olympic Games anyway. Obviously, I don't know that, but just playing the law of averages, you know, usually 2 or 3 Olympic Games is it for the career of a gymnast, and this is her 3rd, I think. And so probably it's a moot point because she's probably not going to be around anyway. But that's a decision, again, that obviously would be better made by people that were more familiar, number one, with her as an athlete, and number two, with the situation as it was actually going on.
Mhm.
Because most of us, we're just spouting off our opinion without basing it on anything real, you know? I mean, you know, I have no idea what was really going on in her life at that moment. I mean, we know a few things that have been reported in the news, right? She had a death in the family and, you know, some things like that. But I don't have any real idea what was going on in her mind and her heart, and neither does anybody else, except for maybe those just very close to her. And so it's those close to her, and coaches should be included in that. You know, those are the ones that actually know enough to make a judgment, and those are the people then that should be able to make that judgment. You know, it's always very easy for us who are disinterested observers, well, not even disinterested, but just let's say observers. Mm-hmm. Those of us that are observers, it's always easy for us to put in our 2 cents worth. But the truth is, we don't really know what's going on. We only have a vague idea. We only know what we've been told. And again, when you only know what you've been told, you're relying on the source of what you've been told too, which I'm not saying is unreliable in this case, but let's face it, we're beginning to learn in many ways that our media is unreliable, you know, on both ends of the political spectrum. And so, you know, yeah, and everything these days gets turned political too, you know. Mm-hmm. Lots of political pundits thought they had to weigh in on it one way or the other, and you know,
you say things get turned political, but I think like one thing that really in the last 5 years that has really been turned political is sports.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yes.
If you look at the Olympics right now, there are a lot of people doing different, like, you know, maybe kneeling during certain things, or they're doing things that are being photographed, and they're all representations of some type of protest, you know, whether it be for LGBTQ or whether it be for, you know, Black Lives Matter. I mean, there's definitely a gigantic, even in like NFL, the NBA had like a whole thing last season where they were just like, we're sorry for racism, you know. It's just, and it was just like, now it's gotten to where that sports are just 100% political.
Yeah, you're right. The sports have become very politicized in recent years. And, you know, you talk about the Olympics. Here's a weird way the Olympics have possibly become politicized too. And you're talking about all the different protests and things planned by the athletes, and there are a lot of them, but not by all athletes by any means. No. As a matter of fact, but I think that's kind of how it's been depicted by the media, you know. And the ratings for these Olympic Games are the lowest in, I don't know, in modern memory anyway, in at least over 30 years. The TV ratings have been horrible for this Olympic Games. And a lot of people attribute that to the fact that people don't want to see athletes, you know, taking a knee, and you know, just like ratings are down across the board for all the professional sports too, you know, and the politicization of these sports has contributed to that, you know.
And I get it, man. I mean, people like my dad, he doesn't want to watch the Raiders game to feel bad about himself and have a moment where, you know, he just wants to watch the Raiders play so he can go back to his knee pain and, you know, his like mortgage and everything else he's dealing with, you know, when the game's not on, you know. And again, I understand that when you have something as powerful as sports, some things need to have a stage. And I do understand that. But it gets to the point now where it's, I don't know, like to me anyway, as me as a consumer, whenever, if I'm watching like an awards show or even any kind of setting where I was not told there was going to be political talk, like whether it was like a comedy show, anything I've ever gone to where somebody in the last, you know, 3 or 4 years where somebody's like, well, I just want to take a minute real quick. I'm just, my gut reaction is just eye roll. I'm just like, oh, I don't care what you think I need to feel bad about myself for. I'm sure I do, but who are you, first of all? Like, you know, I don't know. Like, I feel like when people dust off the soapbox, especially in a venue where that wasn't part of the deal, I think you turn a lot of people off for real.
Yeah, I think that's true. And also, you know, unfortunately, I think, and this is not true of every athlete by any means, but a lot of these athletes that are doing that, it now starts to feel like they're doing it more to draw attention to themselves than to draw attention to a cause.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not true of every athlete, but yeah, with some of them, it certainly feels more like they're doing it to draw attention to themselves than to some cause, and that's unfortunate too.
Yeah.
But, politics has always been at least a little bit of a part of sports, and especially the Olympics, because the Olympics are sports on an international stage, where these athletes are literally representing their country, and there has always been a little bit of a history of political activism at the Olympics. And you know what? We live in a free country, and freedom of speech and freedom of expression is a big part of that. And so you may not agree with athletes and the things that they express, but if you truly believe in the Constitution and you truly believe in the principles of your country, you definitely need to recognize their right to do that.
Right.
And I can understand being maybe, being turned off by it or being disappointed by it. I get that. Okay. But there is no question whether or not these athletes have a right to do it. Kind of like the hammer thrower when she turned her back on the flag during the thing at the Olympic trials, and people were saying she shouldn't be allowed to be on the team. Well, okay. But if you love this country, I got to think you love the Constitution of this country. And that Constitution guarantees you, freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And, I think too many people, they want to support the Constitution when it's convenient for them or when it feels good for them. But let's face it, this is true of all of us, okay, on both sides of the political spectrum. We have no problem supporting free speech that we agree with. Right. And we often don't want to support free speech that we disagree with.
Right.
Okay. And that's just a natural human tendency. But
my thing with that whole situation was that, I understand that people want to protest, and I'm not saying that whatever you want to do, that's fine. But my takeaway from that was, she didn't win that competition. She was like third. So like the true reason for people being there was to see who was the best in that group, to see who was the best. And the person who won it was just like, nobody cared because somebody did like a completely political gesture that was, it was planned probably. And it just like, it's like, honestly, like there was not in the news who won the event. It was all just like, the third place person did this. And again, I'm not, whatever they were protesting, I didn't really pay much attention to what it was all for. But at the end of the day, go ahead.
I was just say the only thing that even if you listen to her, the only thing she seemed to be protesting was the playing of the national anthem.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, she just, but the truth is, there's a great example of one of those where it just felt a lot more like she was trying to draw attention to herself rather than draw attention to some cause, so yeah. And again, though, I may be making an unfair judgment, but
right, yeah.
But that from what I saw reported and from the interviews and things I heard, boy, it sure seemed like she was definitely drawing attention to herself much more than she was to any actual cause.
And honestly, like this, if she was first place, like I think maybe point the camera at the demonstration, but she was third place. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like, okay, well, like you were third place, and okay. Cool, but like we need to focus on who won this event, because we're trying to put together a team for our country. I have this here. We have I don't know if you've seen this or not, but it says quarterback Quinn Ewers, number 2 prospect in 2022, skipping senior season to join Ohio State.
Yeah, that's one that's certainly worth talking about. This is the first time. Now, we've seen kids graduate at semester, so that it's become very common for students to graduate at semester so that they can head to college and be their second semester, go through spring football, and have a chance to compete for a starting spot the following year. Okay. Quinn Ewers is the first one that I can think of that has just decided to go ahead and skip his senior season. Okay. Now, I don't know if he already had enough credits to graduate or if he's getting it, got a GED or exactly how it is. Okay. But he basically then took his high school diploma and is heading to Ohio State to go ahead and practice for them and possibly even compete for a starting position in college this year. Okay.
How old is he?
Well, I don't know for sure. I assume he's 18.
Okay.
But I don't know that for sure. I do know that he was going to be a senior. He is a legitimate 5-star recruit, considered to be one of the best high school quarterback prospects in the nation. South Lake Carroll is the school that he's out of. It has consistently been one of those elite programs nationwide, especially known for their passing game and their quarterback play. And so, he is a product of that system. And Ohio State certainly, was pleased to sign him. Now, I don't know how Ohio State feels about him skipping his senior year.
Right.
I've heard kind of conflicting reports that some of them think it's great and some of them, are kind of
one thing about the NFL
bit.
is they want you to know how to read when you get there. Like they're very important on the the academics.
Yep. Ever since Dexter Manley, they've been a little more picky about that. Do you know what I'm talking about, Derek? Are you old? Okay.
No, tell me though, because it's awesome.
All right. So Dexter Manley was a player that played for the Washington Redskins, a graduate of Oklahoma State University. I don't remember where he went to high school, but I believe it was also somewhere in the state of Oklahoma. Anyway, toward the end of his career in the NFL, and we're talking 8 or 10 years into his career in the NFL, and Dexter Manley was a very good defensive lineman. Okay, we're talking about a good player. You're talking about an all-pro player. Dexter Manley broke down at a press conference and tearfully admitted that he didn't know how to read.
Wow.
He graduated from Oklahoma State, okay? But he didn't know how to read. So Dexter Manley was one of those that was often pointed to, and this would have happened in the 70s, okay?
Okay.
Maybe even in the early 80s. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. Somewhere there, late 70s, early 80s. Dexter Manley was one of those that, and is often held up as an example of how we pass athletes through school to keep them eligible, Yeah. And he's a reason why there got to be a lot more, a lot more of the regulation of that. Hey, you can't just pass athletes on,
Right.
So Dexter Manley was one of those that first kind of, they're a great picture of Dexter Manley, was one of those that first kind of started that, hey, we gotta kind of revamp our requirements here. There we go. Coach Haskell tuning in this evening. That's good. Coach Haskell is probably old enough to remember Dexter Manley too.
I mean, that's tragic though. You get to be
that
old
and
nobody taught you how to read. And the thing is I don't know, and that's the thing. But it's weird how much like the NFL, because basketball, they don't care. The NBA will take an 18-year-old the day he turns 18. They're like, come on in, buddy. But the NFL, it seems like they want you to have like at least a couple of years of college ball in you. He said he's not that old.
Yeah. He is younger than me. Yeah. The NFL has always had a rule that, that you can't draft them until after their junior year, I think. So the NFL has always had rules as far as, and that was done for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was done probably to protect college football. But number two, it was done to protect those players physically, because it was felt that an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid may not physically be mature enough or physically be capable of taking the kind of pounding they're going to take in the NFL. And so there was the argument was always presented both ways. Mm-hmm. Number one, this lends some integrity to college football. We don't have minor league, we don't have minor league football leagues, or they didn't at that time. Now you could arguably say that they do kind of, but at that time, minor league football organizations didn't exist. So they looked at college football programs as their minor leagues and what they used to develop talent. And so the idea was we'll keep them in college so that talent can be developed. And also physically, it's probably better for them, to stay in college until they're fully mature, 21, 22, right. 23, 24 years old. Yeah.
Speaking of the Washington Redskins, the Cleveland Indians changed their name to the Cleveland Guardians.
Cleveland Guardians, yeah.
They're getting sued by a Cleveland roller derby team with this that already had that name. So already troubles with the Guardians name.
There you go. You try to do something politically correct and you still get sued.
I mean,
I believe that will start next year in 2022 is when the Cleveland Guardians name will actually begin. So yeah, that's coming up, and Washington, obviously they're no longer the Redskins. They are the Washington football team.
Are they still working on a name, or is that just like a placeholder right now? Or
I have no idea. To the best of my knowledge, they are not working on a name. Okay. They've just decided they're going to do that. Wichita North this last year, they announced more or less the same thing. Wichita North was the Redskins, and they decided that they're not even going to have a mascot. They're just going to be called Wichita North High School,
Right. Yeah.
So,
I mean, mascots are cool, but you got to be careful, man, especially in a politically correct world, like any mascot could be taken the wrong way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things, society changes. The roots of a lot of those mascots are way back, the Cleveland Indians, at least according to what I've always read, they originally started calling themselves the Cleveland Indians to honor a Native American that played on the team with them, and before that they were, I'm probably going to get this wrong because baseball history is not my strong suit. And so there will be some baseball people that'll freak out, but I think they may have been like the Cleveland Maroons or, something like that. I mean, they had a completely different name, but even then it was kind of an unofficial name, and they changed their name to the Indians supposedly to honor a Native American player that played on their team. So, if you go back to the roots of a lot of these names, there's just never any telling what the roots of it were, I do miss the days when Greg Easterbrook called the Washington Redskins the Potomac Drainage Basin Indigenous Persons to try and be politically correct. But yeah, it's just the society changes. Ideas come along whose time has come.
What's crazy is
that's it now.
Skateboarding is in the Olympics now. And I saw this like really long-winded post from a skater that I know. He's like 35, he's probably like 30, my age, 38. And he had a lot of support from the skating community in like central Kansas. But he was basically saying that the skating in the Olympics was a step backwards for the sport, and that how skating was always like it didn't matter what color your skin was, you were just a part of the crew, and now it's like they're dividing everybody up by what color they are, where they're from and stuff. And, I don't know, but it's crazy. It's like, man, they put your sport that you used to be pissed off when you were a kid because they didn't have any ramps, and now like skate parks are everywhere. Like even Elkhart has skate ramps and stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's like well, now you're giving us too much skateboard stuff. You got to choose. It's like, oh, whatever, dude. Like, I think it's great, man. Like skateboarding has definitely earned its spot. It's not just some fad, it's earned its spot in the sporting world. As far as some people can do some really amazing stuff on four wheels and a piece of wood, man.
Absolutely. But I'm going to tell you, the Olympics needs skateboarding more than skateboarding needs the Olympics.
Right.
Adding sports like skateboarding and snowboarding, and there's talk that they'll add esports in the future and all this. Adding all those sports like that is an effort by the Olympics to stay relevant. It really is. And so, that's part of what's going on. Not that it isn't nice to be recognized as an Olympic sport. I'm sure a lot of skateboarders think it's great that they've been recognized as an Olympic sport. I'm sure a lot of extreme sports people, as they start to gain more and more of that type of recognition, they're going to think that's great. But also, be aware that it is going on because the Olympics is trying to maintain relevance. They're trying to stay popular, and their popularity is obviously sliding. But one of the funnier things that I saw, and it was an exchange on Twitter, I think, where somebody tweeted something about, wait a second, the U.S. got third in skateboarding. Talk about the decline of our society. And somebody else answered back that it probably had something to do with the drug testing. So yeah, then you get into a clash of cultures, the clash of cultures between extreme sports and the Olympics, and and kind of like you've had in the Winter Olympics with some of the some of the newer winter sports, snowboarding and some of those, you've had some positive drug tests for recreational drugs, not performance enhancing drugs by some of those what were seen as extreme athletes and extreme sports guys. Yeah, so there probably is, unfortunately, generally anything that's funny, there's a grain of truth at the heart of it.
Yeah, surfing's in the Olympics this year.
Yep. Yeah, and I was reading an article where they expect by what would it be, 2024 or 2028, they expect esports to be in the Olympics, The
world we live in, man.
Yeah, I know. And that's one of those, I realize I really want to knock that. And then I also realize that it's also just a sign that I'm really getting old,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I just don't get that being an athletic event. I realize it takes a skill set, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I don't get like that bowling, being an athletic
event. You've seen a lot of bowlers over time that were not like pillars of physique,
Yeah.
It's like,
well, yeah,
I mean, look at golf, look at John Daly, he was just in the
Winter Olympics. In the Winter Olympics, take a look at some of those curling teams sometimes,
Yeah.
First of all, do you know what curling is? You do, right?
Is that the one where they do the sweeping?
Yeah, they get the big old stone and it's going down the ice, and they've got their brooms and they're sweeping in front of it. Yeah. Look at some of those curling teams. Some of those look like a bunch of guys that just, they were looking for an excuse to to get away for a few days and drink beer, I mean, but again, here I am judging from the outside, but
a sport I'll never understand, and rest in peace to Rick from Rick's Video and Elkhart. He tried to bring it to Elkhart every summer, but it just never took off. But cricket.
Oh yeah,
I just don't. I mean, but it was just that ball is hard. They chuck it right at you, and I always thought that was like such a dangerous sport. Whenever we try to play it with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't know that Rick did that, but it doesn't surprise me because cricket is a huge sport in India, in England, in a lot of the former English colonies, Now, I realized
that it was big where he was from, and he wanted to make it big in Elkhart.
Yeah. Now, I think Rick's family actually came to Elkhart from Guyana, but obviously they were, of Indian descent and Indian culture, and so, I'm sure it was big where they were from. Generally, anywhere where you have that's one of the former British Crown colonies, you've got cricket, and so another sport that's huge in India is field hockey too.
Right.
I am really, my problem is I am aware of cricket. I know a little bit about cricket, but I know just enough to be dangerous. I don't really know anything about the rules of it or anything like that. I do know that it is somewhat similar to baseball, but just basically with just a few passing similarities. So you use a flat bat, don't you?
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
it's almost like a paddle more than a bat, isn't it?
Not very thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. What are your thoughts on the NFL cracking down on this vaccine? There, you have some coaches that are potentially losing their jobs over it, and some players are.
Yeah, but to me, those coaches are choosing to lose their jobs. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're basically saying, I would rather not have this job than take the vaccine, and that's fine. That's their choice. Here's the deal.
That a little too choose or die for public consumption? I mean, it's like,
I don't know. This is it's a tough situation. It's a tough subject. On one hand, there is a history of requiring vaccinations in this country. Okay. All of you had to have probably a half dozen different vaccinations before you could start school. If you're about 40 years old or older, maybe you might even have to be 50. I'm not sure. But if you're in your late 40s or older, somewhere on your body, probably your shoulder or your hip, you've got a round scar about the size of a nickel or a quarter that is from a smallpox vaccination, right? I mean, there was a vaccination that actually left you scarred. Okay.
My parents have it.
Yeah. And and I know from working over in Liberal that people coming from Mexico, they were giving it much more recently than that. Even a lot of the teenagers that were born in Mexico have that smallpox vaccination scar, right? So, and that's just one example. There's measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines. There's, now there's last year, didn't they start requiring the HPV vaccine for kids? Yeah. So, there's all these different vaccines out there, and they've all been a requirement to go to school. They've all been a requirement for certain jobs, been a requirement for international travel. Okay. But now here's the difference. All of those vaccines are FDA approved and went through a lengthy FDA approval process. This vaccine, because of the pressing need for it, President Trump fast-tracked it. Operation Warp Speed is what they called it. And so this vaccine actually hasn't officially been approved by the FDA yet.
So explain something to me real quick. I have to stop you.
Yeah.
So the people that hate Donald Trump, that want you to get vaccinated, are trying to convince the world to get vaccinated with the dose that was pushed through by the man they hate. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, man.
No, you can't. Right? Like before the election, all the Democrats were saying they would never get that vaccine because it was Donald Trump's vaccine. After the election, suddenly it was completely different. And that's one of the things that cracks me up. I get so cracked up by the political hypocrisy of both sides.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Both sides are hypocritical, and that's the nature of politics, I suppose. But yeah, and so now for the most part, it is people that were former supporters of Donald Trump that say they'll refuse to get the vaccine, and former opponents of Donald Trump that are pushing the vaccine. And so, yeah, that's what they're talking about when they say that politics makes for strange bedfellows,
It's hard to keep up with these days.
Yeah, I mean, politics will make people, unfortunately, jump through hoops with their own personal philosophies, Yeah. It's amazing how mutable some people's opinions really are when politics starts getting involved, I can understand some hesitancy, to take a new vaccine. I really can. At the same time, in Kansas alone, there have been 1.6 million doses of this vaccine given out. And the same people that were saying, oh, we shouldn't worry about COVID because only 0.3% of people are dying from it, those are some of the same people that are freaking out about a vaccine where the number of people that have problems from it is far smaller than 0.3%, So I don't know. I think
it's just crazy how people it's just identity politics. It's
Well,
like, just have an opinion.
That's what worries me.
Own opinion about something.
That's what worries me, is that we're forming our opinions based on politics, not based on medicine. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, everybody is free to make their own judgment. You know, that's fine with me. But just remember that as always, you have freedom of choice, but you don't have freedom from consequences.
Right.
Your choices may well have consequences. You know, if you work somewhere where they're requiring the vaccine and you don't want to get it, there may well be a consequence there. You may not be able to work there anymore. You know, if you choose not to get the vaccine, you may be more susceptible to statistically, you are far more susceptible to getting sick and to becoming seriously ill from COVID. That's one of those, you know, again, you're free to make choices, but you're not free from consequences, you know? And the only thing I would say is, I don't care what you do, but please make your decisions based on, you know, your own, based on medicine and medical beliefs. Make your medical decisions based on that, not based on your politics, please. Right. Now, I know that a lot of people will not do that, but
honestly, man, where I'm at on it, I haven't got the vaccination yet just because I forget to get it. I only have like one weekday off a week, and I usually have stuff planned, so I just haven't got it yet.
Yeah.
But even though I'm probably going to get it, I still am not 100% convinced that they're not just trying to kill me. Like, I'm not walking in there just like, well, shoot me up, buddy. This is going to work. I'm going in there like, all right, you guys might be killing me, but I've seen the Jack Black commercial. I've seen all the celebrities telling me it's so hip to get vaccinated. Like, it's getting to the point where, like, it's I'm not going to be able to go in anywhere if I don't get it. And I honestly, like, I'm not really scared of the vaccine. I'm really not. I don't know how much faith I have in it that it works, but I think it probably works a little bit better than not getting it. But yeah, I just basically haven't got it yet. But I'm tired of these imaginary lines being drawn in the sand. Like, I don't know. I don't see where people get the energy to get on Facebook or Twitter and just post the same thing they said yesterday about. And another thing is, like, people that got the vaccination, like, they like brag about it. Like, they'll go on Facebook, I got the vaccination because I care about people. I'm like, when like 3 weeks ago you were saying you were in Walmart and you wished everybody would die there. Like really, like, you now all of a sudden you care about everybody. It's like, I don't know. It gets a little exhausting, but I don't know. I think that like I said, I'm gonna get the vaccine, but I'm not 100% convinced that it's not a bad idea. You know, I
mean, here's the truth. And, you know, I'm not going to pretend like, you know, I'm a medical doctor. I'm not. There's a risk with all vaccines. Okay. And no vaccine's 100% accurate either. I mean, or 100% effective either. Okay. But at the same time, you know, if there's something you can do that presents relatively little risk to yourself, that can help you and possibly help our society a little bit, then I don't, you know, and again, I'm not telling other people what to do, but to me, that's a pretty easy choice to make, to me, you know. But at the same time, other people hold different beliefs, you know, and I will generally respect your beliefs as long as they're based in something other than just blindly following some political figure. If your beliefs are based in blindly following some political figure, I'm probably going to challenge them a little.
Well, to me, it just doesn't make sense. Like, because like when it comes to Democrats, they're just like, half the time they're talking to me, they have like 100%, like, you know, no questions, ifs, ands, or buts, faith in their party and the government. But then the next minute they'll tell me like the police are trying to kill everybody that's not white. And, you know, it's like, I just don't get how like, I don't understand how people like just trust stuff. Like I don't know. It's like, what did Trace say?
It's Tracy Oots says he got the regular flu shot a couple times, so why not this? And that's kind of the way I felt about it,
No, I normally don't get the flu shot. I don't know why. I've just
I used to not. Yeah, I used to not get the flu shot, but the last 3 or 4 years I've been getting it, and so but yeah, I'm kind of with Tracy there. It just, to me, it's not a political issue. No. To me, it's a health issue, and so health.
The only thing is every time my kid gets vaccinated, I'm freaked out for like 24 hours just in case they're that 0.11% that has like he died. Because that happens every once.
Sure.
I worry about like just being that. My luck would put me in that point, whatever percentage that would, have a negative reaction.
But what I always like to point out to people is this. For most people in the United States, what is the most dangerous activity you're going to engage in on a daily basis?
Driving or?
Yeah, getting in your car and going anywhere. You stand a far greater chance of dying when you start your car and drive down to the store than you do from any vaccination you'll ever get, than you do from catching COVID, from, you know what I'm saying? I mean, but yet we don't, from getting, killed in a mass shooting, from, whatever. For most people, the most dangerous thing you're going to do is start your car and drive somewhere.
Right.
But yet we don't talk on a daily basis about how we need to regulate that and we need to do this and that. Now, don't get me wrong. We've done things to mitigate the risks. That's what seatbelt laws are about, and that's what speed limit laws are about, and all of those driving laws, But we focus on the danger of little things because they're new and they're novel, and we sometimes forget to think about the danger of the big picture, For most of us, we do a lot of things that are far more dangerous than getting this vaccine. We do things that are far more dangerous, even like I said, than catching COVID or catching, so, but again, we don't necessarily think about that, but I mean, all right. How many people die in a given year from automobile accidents? I think it's around 30,000, right? Okay. Now, obviously a lot more than 30,000 people died of COVID. Okay. So I'm not trying to compare the two, and I want to make that clear. But most of us discount the danger of something that is as simple for us and as every day as just getting in our car and driving somewhere. And so we accept levels of danger all the time, right? And it's just when it's a new situation that we tend to overthink it probably a little bit.
Yeah. I just hope that, we just get it figured out. I don't think it'll ever. I think COVID will just be like the flu from now on. But the thing about COVID that sucks is there doesn't seem to be a season.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the evidence that's starting to build up says that you're probably right. That this is probably going to be something that's with us, if not forever, for a long time. For generations possibly. And so yeah, it's. Probably getting a new COVID vaccine may become a yearly thing. Who knows? But yeah, it's something that we're probably going to be living with for the foreseeable future. And with the numbers and this Delta variant, and now we're getting a big surge, and we're actually in many ways worse off than we were a year ago at this time. And so, last year we were talking about, were we even going to have a football season? Were we going to go back to school? And now we're not talking about that, so obviously we've made some progress in our mentality, but it's still there, and it's probably going to be there for a long time.
I think there's a lot of people just saying whatever, whether people like it or not, like the same people that are going to say like, how dare you not get vaccinated? You don't care about society. They went to Lollapalooza. And it's like, how do you not care about society? You just went to a mega crowd. I don't care if you're vaccinated or not. That was not a smart idea to do that during a pandemic. It's like, but the thing is, sports are going, people are going to games, people are going to fights, people are going to life is going on, and COVID's going to be one of those things that just sort of whatever happens, you know. And I think, yeah, you're right. I think you got to just try your best to stay away from it, and, you know, probably get the vaccine, you know, probably get it. So, yeah,
you know, we need to take precautions. I'm not trying to say that, but at some point you've got to acknowledge the danger and go on with your life and just take those smart precautions, you know, as much as you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is going to be with us for a long time. We're going to have to find a way to live with it, you know, a way to go on with life and with commerce and with everything else, you know, in the presence of COVID. And so, you know, that's what it's going to come down to, is we're going to have to be smart about how we do it, but we're going to have to go on and find a way, you know, navigate a path to having a, you know, some sort of a normal life in the presence of COVID, you know. Will things change because of it? Absolutely. They already have. And some of those things will never go back to the same way again. Mm-hmm. But hopefully, you know, those changes in our lives, those permanent changes, can be relatively minor, you know. But I don't know. I'm also a big believer in teamwork, and we all got to do our part too. So, you know, I don't know. All right. Well, guys, hey, we want to thank you for tuning in tonight. I don't know that we solved any of the world's problems, but we talked about a couple of them at least. Next week, we'll be back on Wednesday, guys. You know, school is starting. For me, it starts next week. Actually, Friday, I go in for an in-service. So school is firing back up, and high school sports will be firing back up. I believe Oklahoma starts practice Monday. I think Kansas is still a week after that before they start practice. So fall sports practices will be starting soon. You know, we're basically a month away from fall sports competitions, right? First games are going to be being played in about a month. So, you know, we're not far away at all now, and we're headed there, and that'll give us plenty to talk about in the coming days. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to talking to some other people about some of these things, and I'm looking forward to getting school and high school sports started again. And so that's all coming up. In the meantime, remember that In the Free Zone is a production of Back Home Media. So go to Back Home Media's webpage, check out the services they offer. And until next week, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Thanks a lot.
Well, I don't think it, I thought it, that's different. I said what I said and I meant it, or lamented. Words given weight without thought, and a person, the way that I talk and the way that I ought to be able to pause and to say that the fault can be placed on my arm, to display for assault, to disgrace in this arm. Pray for the day they could wait for the calm. You can't control the storm, only weather it, whether it's 5 weeks and 5 days of rain sideways, or scorched earth, search for death, or water left with all the thorns, with the petals gone, settle on the breath of autumn. If the ground fits, wear it, the crown fits.